What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Blade Dive. I'm stoked you're tuned in and listening. A couple of housekeeping things quickly before we dive into the episode. First and foremost, we've gotten a lot of questions about how can I contribute? How do I contribute to the Push Road questions of the day? Super easy, very easily done. Look for the Instagram story to drop either Tuesday or Wednesday with a photo of the guest that I'll be speaking with that week and a question box below it. Submit your question within the box. Done. If your question doesn't fit in the box, send us a DM. Other best way you could do that. Second, I want to thank our sponsor, Prenoth. This podcast, The Blade Dive, is presented by them. Huge thank you to them for supporting us. All right, my guest today is Chloe Butel, and Chloe's a bit of a rock star in the snow industry. She is supported and loved by many and has made massive impacts and contributions to a couple different resorts that she's been a part of teams within, one of which is Sierra Tahoe, operating directly under Tyson Terpening and Garrett Froelich. Chloe has also worked at Timberline under John O'Boyle, a.k.a. Weasel, and alongside operators such as Frank Wells. Super cool opportunity there. And she gets into her stories of what it was like to work at both places. Beyond the job, she is definitely a great mechanic and has a passion for working on vehicles, specifically her two Toyotas that she owns. Chloe is originally from France, so born in France, dual citizenship, moved to California at a young age, speaks both French and Spanish, and has a newfound love for surfing. So quite the badass Chloe is for sure. I do want to bring up one thing and preface the conversation. This recording was actually taking place for episode 30 at the exact same moments that the fires were rolling through Sierra Tahoe Resort. You can feel the air leaving the conversation as Chloe and I are receiving messages from friends, coworkers, industry people alike, informing us of what was happening. And we agreed to leave it in because that's what the Blade Dive is. It's a real conversation. So our hearts are with everybody in South Lake right now.
Go ahead and give it the juice. Already.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Blade Dive. I'm stoked you're tuned in, and I'm excited for today's guest. Chloe Butel is with me in the virtual booth. And if you don't know Chloe is passionate about wrenching on cars, trucks, vehicles, definitely not afraid to rip a transmission out of a Toyota, but she's also an operator. She's part of the crew at Sierra Tahoe, working alongside folks the likes of Tyson Terpening and Garrett Froelich. She's also spent time operating snowcats at Mount Hood alongside folks like Frank Wells and John O'Boyle, a.k.a. Weasel. Definitely knows her way around the snow industry arena and is currently working on some awesome event opportunities that are headed everybody's way. So without further ado, Chloe, how are you? Welcome to the show. Thanks for taking the time.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much for having me on here. It's kind of a dream to be able to have my story among some of the greatest in the industry. So thanks.
Hey, I'm honored to have you on the show, first of all. And it's an effort, it's a big effort to coordinate with me on making this happen. So I'm not taking it lightly. It's definitely amazing to have you on the show. As I did my due diligence on the back end, it was awesome having people just get excited about you telling your story and filling us in on what you're all about. So yeah, I think really the credit goes to you. I'm doing nothing but just pushing record. You know the deal. We kick this thing off with a special guest question. So you cool with that? Diving in there?
Yeah, let's hit it.
Let's hit it. Okay, well, first question right out of the gate comes from Marsha, Director of Marketing over there at Trollhaugen. She's got a pretty awesome question for you, so I will go ahead and play it for you now.
Hey, Chloe, it is Marsha checking in from good old Wisconsin, land of the trolls, aka Trollhaugen. Chloe and I are very new friends, but I'm already one of the biggest fans of this lady, and I can't say enough good things. She is so welcoming and so talented and driven and just an all-around amazing human. And the reason we were connected is because of a very, very exciting event that was a dream and now a reality. Take the Rake will be the first ever terrain park built entirely by women for every human to enjoy. This November at Trollhaugen, the dream is coming to life, and Chloe has been an integral piece of the creation of this event. So I will leave it up to you to talk more about the event, how you got involved. But my questions, a two-parter. What does Take the Rake mean to you? And what do you see for the future of this event? I know there's been a lot of talk about we could do welding classes, we could invite speakers, we could do so many things. And I know the list is endless, but I'd love to hear more from you and to tell the world what our plans are to ignite a fire and get more women in operations. Thanks, Chloe. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Marsha, for contributing. She is what an inspiring woman. She is doing so much for women in this industry, and it's honestly humbling to be a part of it. This Take the Rake event that's happening in late November this year is one of its kind. It's the first of its kind, hopefully the first of many. And it's kind of like an answer to how we can create more events to empower women in our industry, and why there aren't more women building parks that we like to ride as women riders too. All the women diggers and operators in this country, or some of the many that have worked really hard to like bring everyone together and have an event that really showcases women in the industry, in the media, as well as creating a park that will be able to serve, all humans of every shape, size, and color. And it's incredible to be a part of it and be able to be at her side and kind of help her shape the idea of it and how it's going to be actually happening this year.
I tell you what, like I was a huge shout out to Marsha for contributing. When I even like remotely heard about the possibility of something like this happening, I was very quietly, because I was just trying to be a cheerleader. I wanted to be like, dude, like let's make this happen. How does this occur? Like, how does this get off the ground? Who do we? So like, like quietly being a cheerleader, every chance I could get, just to stay motivated, like editing the podcast or thinking about who the next guest would be. To think about this event coming to fruition was definitely a fuel for me. I was like, man, I'm tired, but we've got stuff like this being created with people behind the scenes working to make something like that happen. I got to stay lit so that I can create this or what. I don't know. Like I was just amped. I literally felt amped knowing that an event like this was going to potentially exist. So just hearing that it may be a possibility, Chloe, and it's so cool that you're involved with it. What does that feel like? Was Marsha reaching out to you, or did you just like call Marsha like, hey, can I jump on board this train? Like, what's up?
Yeah, well, I actually heard about it from Jess. She is a hand crew at Timberline, and it was kind of an idea that a lot of women talked about in a discussion at It's Tits, which is a snowboy event that happens yearly at Timberline that is built entirely for women to film and ride as a kind of a fundraiser for breast cancer awareness through that. And an amazing event for women. I think it's groundbreaking in the industry. And a discussion panel came out of that where every woman who is big in the industry, writers and Marsha in marketing and in different parts of the industry, came together and asked this question of like how we can empower more women to feel like they're able to also be a digger or also work in parks, like in male oriented or male dominated industries. And this idea of a terrain park built entirely by women, which has never been done before. And when I heard of this, I could not believe it. I had never thought of something I wanted to be more a part of before, just how empowering that would be for not only all of us involved, but every woman that had ever had the thought of like, why can't I be in the park with all of these guys, like doing what they're doing, raking or in the machines, being a part of the park industry, which is so male dominated
Mm,
that as a woman, you don't really see the representation there of other
yeah.
women. You don't really see, like, some women don't even know that they can get a job or that they're able to if they apply, so they don't. And that's kind of like changing the script a little bit by having this event. So when I heard about it, I was floored and I had to
Mm,
be a part of it. And it was kind of introduced to me as like, you should be a part of this. But as soon as I found out, I straight away reached out to Marsha and was like, how can I help? Like, tell me exactly what I can do to make this happen. I need to see this happen because it would be so beneficial to not only me as a woman in the industry, but to every future operator or future digger female that could change the industry as well.
and I said it from day one too when we threw Brandon's episode out there as episode 1, and he talked about Jess Riccitelli being an inspiration for his career, but also being a motivator for what he did on a daily basis, being supported by her, and the two of them believing in one another and coexisting within an organization. And I believe that to be very possible, and I don't know why some folks believe it to be otherwise, but the
Yeah.
and it's trippy to me, and that's why it's, having Jess come on the show and having Harmony come on the show and Izza come on the show and now you're on the show, and I want to keep this momentum going with women feeling like they can be a guest on the podcast, and I want to throw that out there too. But I also want to ask you, take the Rake and the name itself, that's a powerful name, because
Yeah.
when you take something, you're talking about, like you're saying, rewriting the script on what it is to be in this industry and contributing and feel like you can contribute, and you're almost taking something back. Is that how you maybe not taking it back, but you're taking the opportunity that's out there for you to take advantage of? Is that how you see it?
Yeah, I mean, I see it as like you're taking your tool and you're
Mm,
going to make something incredible out of it, and everyone's going to be looking at it. And that's the thing with this event. We're taking our rakes and our cats and we're going to show the entire country as like a preseason terrain park. All the eyes are going to be on this event. There's not a lot of other things going on, so it'll be a showcase of how women are equally capable, if not more capable, or just, in their own sense, like to do and create something amazing to ride and have that ability to showcase their skills and their capabilities as equals in the industry.
damn. I'm already, I mean, like, I was excited, again, that Marsha wanted to be a part of this, but the cool aspect of what this event is and then what it can be in the future, she was mentioning, gosh, she values operations. She knows, Marsha understands, and she knows that operations is a core contribution to what makes, if not the core, that what makes ideas come to reality, and that's snowmaking, that's welding, that's snow removal, that's just access in general, snowcats and grooming. All of that encompasses everything that a guest can come or have access to be a part of at a ski resort. And what do you see it as? Because I think that there's so much possibility for this event to literally expose so many different people to so many different avenues as they could pursue as a career. Is that a correct assumption?
Yeah, the idea for this event in terms of what it could become is not only just a showcase of a park that can be built and ridden, but also a kind of a space for all women in this industry to come together yearly and learn skills that will make them more, more desirable in the industry or more hireable in terms of any male or female operator or worker, have discussions on certain important factors like mental health, or discussions on whatever key components that we're struggling with, and how to come together as a group and support one another in the industry, and talk about ways to change what we see as negative in this industry for ourselves. I think the coolest thing that it could become is just a place to learn skills, to have welding workshops for a lot of people that don't know how to weld, or have workshops on fabrication, or have workshops on snowmaking, all of the aspects that would make you a more well-rounded industry worker, and being able to hone in your skills while also being inspired by other people like you. It seems like it would be a great place for that.
I think it's awesome to see things like this come to fruition. Ideas are often it's really I think it's really easy to talk about something, right? Like, it's really easy to say, well, we should do this, or we should do that, or the industry should be this, or it should move this direction, or it should ebb and flow here and there. But it is so much more difficult to make things come to fruition. And so the fact that, rubber meets the road here, nose to the grindstone, whatever we want to term it, it's happening. And so it's happening in November. Is that correct? Like just before Thanksgiving? Is that right?
End of November into early December. It'll be a few day builds, and then the park will be able to be ridden for a few days by everyone, or however long that they want to, and it'll be showcased in that sense. So anyone can come to ride it and check it out, and it'll be one of the first in the country to open.
What do you think your goal is for the event as a participant, as a builder, as a coordinator, however you want to dub yourself? What's your goal? What do you want to get out of it?
I think my goal is to help create something that is not only, different because it comes from a lot of different minds. And as I like to think, like, men and women are very equal, but in a lot of ways they are different. And I think that women, in terms of at least myself building, like, I think of things a little differently. So having a different view on a build, and having so many very talented minds come together, being able to create something that is not only different, but it is a conglomeration of all of these sick minds together to create something that is represented, like, really well, I guess. And just being able to put everyone's ideas together and make connections with all of these awesome women in the industry, and build something really sick. That'll be super fun to ride. And I think that's the same with all builds, really. But
I think that's an awesome goal, being able to come together and realize everything for the greater good is the direction that everybody needs to head. Take advantage of it, ask questions, see how you can plug in, and then seeing the final product there on the run, however that comes together. Like, I just can't wait to see photos and social media videos, and definitely want to see Adam Mahler on the spot, like, maybe jibbing some jibs. Just saying, like, if you throw the S rail in there, be sick if he could try to front board it. I'm just saying,
I
Adam
saw
Mahler.
that. Yeah,
Adam Mahler.
I mean, like what you said, it's pretty crazy to be able to see an idea like this and have it actually set in stone and happening and come to fruition, because not only is it just an event and an idea, but it's like entirely thought of, created by, and run by women. And that is the first of its kind in history in this industry. So the fact that it has broken that threshold of, like, this is happening, it's actually, like, able to happen. Now we can move forward from that and, like, build off of that and create more from it. So it's pretty pretty awesome. I'm excited.
Well, and I agree. I will say this too. I was talking to Marcia, and one of the things that I brought up to her was, so to me, Trollhaugen encompasses everything as far as a core experience that you could have for either skiing or snowboarding. And I brought it up this way, and I've mentioned this before too on the show. So like the magic of what resorts have, when you show up there and you park and you go get your ticket and you go get on the snow and you get down and you have the slice of pizza or the beer or the Gatorade or whatever it is that you got to take your break, and then you get back out there and you go do it some more. That's how I can relate, because that's how I kind of was exposed to snowboarding from the very, very, very humble beginnings of the East Coast at Appalachian, Ski Mountain, Beach Mountain, Sugar Mountain. But if I feel like if I plug somebody into Troll that had never experienced snowboarding or skiing, that place is not going to come across as intimidating. It's not going to come across as something they couldn't be a part of. And it's definitely going to, I feel like that it would be more of a catalyst for somebody to go, yeah, I enjoyed my experience there because that place has some magic that I was able to get excited about. And so I want to come back. And I think that in combination with this event that's occurring, that's catering to women, the operations side of resorts, and then also it is not hosted at somewhere. I mean, I'll say it. It's not hosted at somewhere like Breck. It's not hosted at somewhere like Keystone. It's not hosted at somewhere like Vail. Like, it is literally at Trollhaugen. And what Trollhaugen has done over the past couple of years with, Holy Bowly and their really cool events that they've produced to create a awesome brand under some really, I would say, intricate, revolutionary, but core leadership. This is kind of like the cherry on the top. Like, it is awesome. I think it's so cool that this is even happening. And so, like, I guess my question is, landing the plane, getting to the point. Do you agree? Like, I feel like Troll has some awesome magic.
Yeah, if it's going to happen anywhere in this country, it's going to be there. They are revolutionary with what they choose to put on as projects, and they're kind of in the forefront of like the park scene and the way that it's kind of becoming throughout time. It used to be a very cut and dry scene, but now as time goes on, there's a lot more creativity, and they've really just taken the reins of that and made it their thing, and they are revolutionary. So I think that it couldn't be any more successful anywhere else than there.
Yeah, well, like I said, silently, when I found out about it, I shouldn't say silently because that's not good. I just know that I couldn't go like, hey, dude, have you heard about this? Because it wasn't necessarily it's something that I had the right or the ability to broadcast. But as an individual who's a dad to a little girl, and I'm a constant cheerleader for her, I wanted to make sure that once it was kind of public knowledge that I was like, hey, look at this. Hey, look at this. Hey, look at this. I was super excited.
Well, it's great to see other people, especially males that have been in the industry, be excited about something like this. Like, same with Adam Mahler, he's 100% behind this, and that's really inspiring to see that there is support, because for me, I wouldn't think that there would be so much support since it's such a new idea for a lot of people, and a lot of older heads in the industry looking at this and cocking their head and being like, I don't know if I could support this. Like, that's something that you have to just work with and try and work past, and it's something that is very common. But with this, we've seen a lot of support, and it's amazing. Even the brands that are behind it and the sponsors that are part of it, and seeing it come to be something is very exciting. I can't wait to see what happens and how much representation is going to come out of it, and how many women will see it and be like, I can do that. I want to be there next year. It's a conversation starter for sure, and it'll start a lot of hard conversations in a lot of places where I think the questions won't stop coming. So it'll be a catalyst.
Yes. And speaking of questions continuing to make their way towards you on the podcast, that's what I want to do. We want to run with a 1-2 punch, Marsha kicking it off, and then Harmony Johnson being your next special guest question right out of the gate. So I will go ahead and play that for you now. Here we go.
Hi, Blade Dive. Thanks for having me back. Hi, Chloe. You've gotten the opportunity to work with some pretty influential guys at a few different resorts in your career, and recently up at Timberline during the summer. I've also spent a summer up on Mount Hood, not operating a snowcat though. What was your experience up there like? And the record heat wave the Pacific Northwest experienced this summer, how did that impact the operations up there? I enjoyed my summer there, and it looked like you did as well. Take care, and I hope to meet you soon.
Wow. Thank you, Harmony, for contributing. I'm excited she's actually going to be at that event too, so I'm excited to work alongside her. And
we got to back up. She's going to be there too?
Yeah. Yeah, we're getting everyone involved. That's the goal.
Dude, oh man, that's awesome. Sorry, secretly excited there as well. That's sick. Sorry to interrupt. Like, that's so cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Harmony Johnson. Nice.
I didn't know that she worked at Timberland. That's pretty cool. Yeah, the experience up there is otherworldly. It's almost like you are on another planet. It goes from the moon to Mars in a matter of months, but it's nothing like I've ever experienced before. I would say that my experience was entirely positive and life-changing in a way. Just being up on a glacier that's also an active volcano in the heat of the summer, pretty much just alone with you and a couple of coworkers in a machine. It just never gets old. Every morning the sun rises in the distance and you can see thousands of miles away because the elevation is so much higher than everywhere else. And I had never experienced anything like that. I don't think I ever will. It was an incredible summer. It did come with some challenges, like she mentioned, that heat wave that came, record heat wave, never seen before. And I worked with some awesome operators up there. Danny and Weasel and Frank Wells was up there this summer too. And nobody had ever seen anything like this before. It was unforeseen, a kind of a tragedy. Of course it had come at the worst possible time, a week, maybe a few days before the opening of the High Cascade Wind Dells and the Mount Hood Summer Ski School camps. And we had spent weeks building, or days building, and then they had spent months preparing and farming all the snow for the right positions, and we had spent weeks pushing snow and then days building everything to set everything. And then 2 days before it hit, the heat wave of the century, and it almost went to the triple digits I think it did go triple digits on the parking lot, and then ever so slightly less on the glacier, but the melt out was insane. We lost 9 feet of snow in 3 days. And it was my first summer up there. I didn't really know what to expect. I was just kind of rolling with all of the punches. It seemed like every night I was told, well, we've never seen this before. And I was like, neither have I. So that's great. We're just going to try and figure it out. But when that happened, we just kind of had to quit for a couple days and see what was going to happen. All of that snow melted, and we had to just start over and try and make do with whatever was left. And that was a struggle on its own. And I was just learning as I went, because I had never experienced anything like this before. And I was working with operators that have been there for 20 plus years just trying to make something happen and build something so that the camps could go on and that it wasn't a total disaster. But that was a struggle for sure. And it was also pretty eye-opening to be a part of such a drastic change in climate or in weather that happened this summer, in terms of like the overall climate that has been there long term, and how that really opened my eyes a little more to how fast things are changing in this world. But yeah, that was hectic.
Yeah, I feel like, Timberline is definitely dubbed as kind of the proving grounds for operators, but it's also a canvas for an expected deliverable for campers, for public that want to come up there and ski if it's accessible. And it's kind of like what we've talked about all along in this podcast. It's like there's all these behind the scenes things that happen, and whether that's like a crevasse or snow melt, or how difficult it is to climb, or how difficult it is to till, or whatever it may be. The experience up there, I have never been a part of in a machine, but I have been able to be up there during the summer and just see what it's like, as far as just that canvas, and what the hours would be like too. It's an animal. Sometimes folks look at summer as, it's summer, like it's great, like it's awesome, it's warm, it's amazing, we're kicking it, it's casual. But it's still work. Like it's gnarly. Some of the best, I have to ask though, like some of the best sunrises and sunsets you've ever seen, or no?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. The best sunrises I've ever seen in my life. I think I probably have a total of 2,000 pictures on my phone from just taking sun. I have a thing for sunrises. I think that's what keeps me going on graveyard shift.
Is the snowcat in the photo? I have to ask.
It's not. It's usually it's really like a lot of the time I'm just like operating and going along, and I just like look at it and I have to just take a picture. So I try and like keep going while I take a picture. So it's like through the cab, because I just can't miss it. And it's got like the little lines from the heater inside of the windshield. Yep. It's not a great picture, but I have thousands of them because it's so amazing. And that's like that and the being in crevasses and having 40 plus feet of snow under you with like SnowSat telling you like when it is accurate, just when it's like 40 feet deep under you at the beginning of the summer, that just blew my mind. I couldn't even fathom how much snow that was, because honestly, coming from Sierra, like we don't get that much snow, and we do get snow on a good year, but when it's not a good year, we're working with inches at best in a lot of spots. And it's really hard to fathom being on top of 40 feet of snow when I'm used to scraping enough snow for a park down to like leaving 3 inches, So that was magical and also pretty intimidating, but it leaves a lot of room for creativity, like a canvas, like you said.
So I my first question maybe would be from that, what was the biggest takeaway that you had? But I also saw, I sent Frank a message a while back. It was he was doing something with a shovel in the half pipe. And I think it was your Instagram story. But I sent Frank a message. I was like, because I was talking to Jeremy Carpenter at the time. I was like, I don't know what Frank was doing, but I think he was basically avoiding using the chainsaw, but he was still establishing a new line. I don't know. And like in a roundabout way, like that's what he said he was doing. But it was I had never seen anything like it. I was like, tight. That is awesome.
That's actually really funny, because after that heat wave happened, it was, all of the half pipes were cut. Well, one of them was just totally like, we just abolished it because too much snow melted and it was impossible to keep going. So there was only like the public and then the private half pipe, which Frank builds in the summers. And after the heat wave hit, there was also a massive dust storm that came with record winds. So, along with record heat, there was a dust storm, and the snow was dark and it was hot. Everything was melting. Everything was just getting ruined. So, I just I asked to come in the cat with Frank, because why not? He's Frank Wells, and like, when will I ever have the opportunity to do that? And he's a great person. Love him. He is super funny, so talented. I loved spending time with him. But one of the days that I hung out with him, he was trying to reestablish the half pipe after this dust storm and heat wave crazy phenomenon that happened. And we were just going along. He was showing me some stuff, and then he's like, I'm gonna go rake the lip real quick. And I was like, you're gonna rake the half pipe? And he said, well, yeah, we have to recut it, we have to like save it pretty much. And so he's like, I'm gonna do it. And I was like, I'm gonna help you, obviously. It's not gonna just be real quick. So we both find some rakes and we start raking this half pipe. And lo and behold, it was very hot and it was very hard. And it took probably two hours of both of us doing it. And I think at one point I almost passed out. It was so
Wow.
It was pretty. You're on the edge of this 22-foot half pipe, just trying to like reestablish the edge while like raking inside of the vert wall. And I had to stop for a second and be like, I'm not gonna faint in front of Frank Wells. So I went to go get some water, and we just hammered that. We raked that for hours on end, and it was probably the hardest handwork I've ever done. But we managed to save the half pipe, and we definitely bonded over that terrible time.
Can I say too? I was just gonna say, like, Frank's golf game, because like Frank is an avid golfer, and he definitely walks. Like, he's not the cart guy.
Yeah.
He told me that he definitely walks, and so he is. I mean, he wants to put out an awesome product, so he's willing to do whatever he's gonna do to do it. But I saw that happening, and I was like, man, like,
Yeah.
goat, definitely
Definitely.
legend right there, getting after it. I gotta ask him what he's doing though, for sure. What is that? What is happening there? But that's crazy. But so that you took that video, but I'm looking at that happening, and I'm going, I think it was like 102 degrees up there today. Like it's still 102 degrees, and they're out there doing that right now. That's crazy.
Yeah, but honestly, if we hadn't have done that super pipe would have just been ruined, and it would have had no lip, and we were able to see it through an extra week, I think, just with that maneuver. And that's a lot of the things I learned from him, were just like maneuvers and these extreme conditions. And that was a really awesome part of my takeaway from working there this summer, was how all of these really experienced operators are able to take this never before seen experience to them, these extreme conditions, and generally all extreme conditions up there in the summer, and still create an amazing product out of it, and just have to kind of engineer their own way to getting about that. And that was pretty inspiring to see.
Did you ever, do you have a memorable quote from something that you learned up there? That was something that I was curious about too, because yes, so there are a lot of people working hard to make something amazing happen up there. Yeah. But are there pretty hilarious and profound things that maybe said along the way that just stuck with someone? I'd be curious to know that, just throwing that out there.
Yeah, less is more, and in terms of the machine in those conditions and that snow, like that, it just, anything that you do that you don't need to do will take days away from that feature or that slope. It's just like every single move is pretty critical for keeping the snow there in all of those summer months, and especially in extreme heat. And that's something that I learned, just like looking at what I'm doing, which in the winter, like, I kind of my fault is that I like am a perfectionist. So I, even when it doesn't matter, I like work the snow too much. And that's something I really, really saw in in my skills this summer, that I need to not do that, especially with the snow, slushy snow. The less is more, and the less you do, the better it'll come out, or the more that it'll be, it won't melt out as fast, or it'll still help in the future. So
I feel like that's wise. Maybe one follow up to that would be: do you feel like you're going to be more of an asset to Sierra or any other resort that you work for in the future because of your experience there at Mount Hood?
I think every operator that has a chance of experiencing different conditions will be more capable of tackling challenges head on. I think that's like something for me, is what I want to see myself develop, is those skills in all different types of snow, because snow changes every year, every season, every night. It's always different. So experiencing every different type of challenging snow to add to my repertoire of like, okay, so it's like this. Maybe I can do it this way, how I've learned how to do it with this snow, or just a different way, and trying to like think a little bit more outside the box and have those experiences to add to my problem solving. I think that would make me more successful. I think that's something I find really important in any operator, especially at my stage, being pretty like new, just to experience all the challenges as I can and try and come out of it in a positive way, or with having at least learned something out of it and being able to grow from that. I think the more you put yourself in those challenging conditions, the better you will be as an operator.
So I don't have a really great segue after the amazing answers you've given to everything we've just discussed, but I really want you to unpack for us, just to help us get to know you better. Growing up as Chloe Butel, who you are, what you're all about, and maybe painting that picture for us, whether it's your childhood or however deep you want to take it. Just fill us in.
Well, I'm French. So I was born in France and I moved to the US in kindergarten. I am a dual citizen, so I'm French and American. Two passports.
Can you speak fluent French?
Yeah,
Or
I speak fluent French. I was
bonjour.
Bonjour. I was fluent in Spanish too throughout all of my education, but it's been a
Wow.
while since I've talked, so I can't really say that I'm fluent until I like really get it all back. But yeah, I think once you learn one, you'll learn a lot of the other Romance languages. They're all pretty similar.
Very cool.
But yeah, so from France, moved to the US. I grew up in the Bay Area. Kind of went K through 12, San Francisco area, and spent a lot of time in Tahoe as a young child, in growing adolescent to teenager. And I actually started skiing in the Alps when I was 3. And
Wow.
so the whole snow thing in my family has just always been like we're very ski oriented family. All of my siblings did their ski racing. I never did that. I kind of moved when I was pretty young. So I just started skiing in Tahoe a little more until I started snowboarding when I was like 8. But kind of grew up going there on vacation, and then when it came to high school is when I went a lot more often, and I would go on every other weekend, and I really like started falling in love with snowboarding and doing it more and actually getting better and going through the park. I couldn't hit anything because I didn't know anyone or know anything anyway how to. I just like thought it was the coolest thing, and I never kind of broke away from that magic of like how you were talking about earlier. When you go and you have the whole experience, you get the shitty pizza, overpriced burger, and you spend time with your family and go to the lodge. That was always my favorite experience as a kid, and I never grew out of that. I think that's a lot of us in the industry never really grew out of that magic, because it's so it's so amazing to be able to do. And so throughout high school, I just kind of loved going to Tahoe, and we have like our family home is there, so that's home base. And then when I graduated high school, I decided to go to college and not just go snowboard, which was definitely a thought. But I went to college in Humboldt in Northern California, in Arcata, and studied botany there.
Well, I have a follow-up question to kind of the France thing, because my perception of that is that it's very spaced out. Am I wrong or right there? Like, is France very much, is it kind of compressed to where you
Yeah.
can definitely
I
hop
mean,
around?
everything is compressed in France. Even the cars. Like the cars are like half the size of any car here. It's pretty
That's
crazy.
such a good point.
Like, you don't even see, like, my truck is a small truck, but it's still like bigger than any car anyone drives there. The roads, they're tiny. Everything is so much more compressed and compact. But spatially, yeah, it's easier to get around. It's easier to go to different countries, go to Italy or go to Spain or go surfing in Biarritz or go do whatever it is that you want to do. Like, it's all much more attainable, and there's a lot less space in between. But everything, just kind of depends how you get around. But yeah, it's pretty amazing there. I would love to go back and work in France at some point. That is definitely a goal of mine.
I was just going to say, that was definitely my next question. Do you want to go back there? And then if you had you said you moved over to the States in kindergarten. Do you still have kind of like a fond memory or a time and place that you were stoked on, that you'll always cherish being over there, your experience on snow?
Yeah, on snow, not as much because they were so few and far between, but I go back to France all the time. I used to go every year, but that's pretty expensive. So it became less attainable as I grew up. And I went few years ago, and I intend to go back next year. It's like every time I go back, I kind of remember everything that I left, and I still have, all of my family there and some of my childhood friends. So I think that is a goal, to go back and live for a few years, if not in the long term, because it's really a big part of me, and I love everything about it there so much. It's really just kind of an amazing place that I'll always cherish. But
did you feel, I mean, when you went back and visited France, did you feel the same way? Like, we're at a young age, you probably were remembering things of the experience, but living in America and then going over back to France, was it kind of a, oh wow, this is really cool, but for different reasons kind of thing?
yeah, France is very different. The culture there is very different, and the way that there are things that I wish that I could find here. Like in France, everyone has apéro, which is like before dinner you would all get together and have drinks and like little, appetizers and everything, like every day. That's such a normal thing there. But here, like, people don't do that, and it's just, there's a bigger sense of like a community and just like closeness with others, and just really an appreciation for connection with others. And in that way, like, every meal in France is hours long because it's multiple courses, and it's just really an excuse to get together and talk shit and just talk about everything and get together and have like that sense. I think everyone's day there is kind of worked around being able to have meals and enjoy food and just have those simple pleasures of life that I think is very lost in America. I think everything's very fast paced, and there's like everything's bigger and faster, and we like to think it's better here, but I mean, to each his own. But I think that the way of life in France is like kind of working so that you can enjoy life rather than working to survive and like to just work and like enjoying work. I think that's why people in France strike so much, and there's like so many protests, is like they really value their life and their ability to enjoy it. And that is like my favorite thing about France, just how they enjoy the simple things, and the culture is very centered around being able to do that.
That was so well put. I'm going to add on to that by saying that I feel like in America we try to manufacture that versus where other places it's very organic and already instilled.
I mean, that's the best thing about traveling around and experiencing different countries is like every country has their own culture or different cultures, and that's like you can take away whatever you want from all of them and like make your own way of life out of it. I think that's why I love to travel and experiencing different places, even in the US, just around the West, just driving around and going to little towns and seeing what everyone's all about. It's pretty cool.
So, Chloe, machines. And I have to ask because you, like we've already discussed, have done some pretty profound things in a machine, but you've contributed in big ways at multiple places. Sierra Tahoe, Timberline. You're getting ready to jump into this amazing project with Trollhaugen, with Take the Rake. But you seem like somebody that has the attention to detail, but you also seem like somebody that's very interested in processes and how things are done and how you could be better, as kind of you've already stated. But when did machines, not specifically maybe snowcats, but when did machines kind of enter your life, and were they a part of your life early on?
I guess not really early on. I've always had that interest, and I was surrounded by, my brother is a big mechanic, so he's always been under a car his whole life, just tinkering. And I kind of got that experience secondhand, although, he was kind of a rambunctious teen and didn't really want his baby sister asking questions. So I never really got, I was asked about it, but I never really got the intel and never really got into it, probably until college, when I was on my own and really had the opportunity to be interested in so many different things. But I've always loved machines. I've always loved cars, my whole life, with my brother being someone I really look up to, and I really respect that kind of work. Being able to fix stuff is really rewarding. My mom used to fix all of our computers. She'd just like take them apart and like tinker and like fix them and clean them my whole childhood. So I was kind of brought on to how like things can be done, and you don't really always need to take it somewhere to do it for you, and you can kind of figure things out. And I really like to work with my hands, and build stuff, make like creative projects and macrame and like knots and stuff like that. Always as a kid was always making something or building something with my hands. But it wasn't until college that I really like discovered a love for machines, or like working on cars and stuff. Like I was exposed to it by someone that I spent a lot of time with, and he was a mechanic, and he helped me discover my love for Toyotas and trucks and 4x4s and all of that kind of thing. And I actually bought my Toyota truck, 88 pickup, maybe like 4 years ago for $500 out of out of this kid's garage. And it had a blown head gasket, it had a blown clutch, blown U-joint. It didn't even have an exhaust manifold. And I drove that thing home. I was just like on the high of my life. I was so stoked. And it was going so slow, and you could hear like all of the engine, just like it was just so loud. There was no exhaust, no manifold, nothing. And I drove it a few miles home, and it was like, all right, let's get to work. And we put a head gasket, clutch, U-joint, manifold, exhaust system in like 2-3 days. And, that thing is pretty old. It's got a lot of miles on it, but I still have it 4 years later. And like, it never stops being a lesson. I think I've been towed probably 8 or 9 times. And it has not kept me from letting or keeping that thing, because I love that truck more than anything. And it's taught me how to rebuild an engine, how to do drop my tranny to do my clutch in like a matter of hours, and do my brakes and my bearings, and everything that I've ever broken down, I've had to fix myself. And that is what has taught me to love working on machines and like figuring out how they work, because it's actually just nuts and bolts. Like, yeah, maybe I'm like more minded towards like figuring them out and it's easier for me, I guess. But I think it's pretty simple. Like, it's nuts and bolts and it's processes, and that's the most rewarding thing, especially working on something I love. Like, my truck is my favorite thing in the world. If I were to have anything, it would be it. And that is like my possession, and it's my passion project. So I've really grown an absolute love for it, because it keeps breaking down on me and I have to keep fixing it.
Do you think it was the way that you were introduced to that? Was that something that was introduced to you, and whether it was working on it or the brand of truck, or was it the constraint of money? I don't know. Like, do you think it was the way that vehicle, the fact that it would need to be worked on, how was that? Was it, I guess that's really it. Was it introduced to you in a manner that you were just gravitated towards
I
being
mean,
okay
I
with
mean,
working on it?
Toyotas are generally the best trucks, I think, in the world. And they're, I mean, for so many reasons, but mechanically, they're very reliable, very sound, very easy to work on, especially in the 80s range. Like, things in the 80s were built to last and built to be worked on in a way that is not just like going to make you swear and throw all your tools and quit. It's like there's a process, it makes sense. Like, they are very easy to work on and simple and reliable too. And they're just sick trucks. Like, Toyotas are the coolest trucks, and they're capable. They can get through any terrain. And you can really just do anything with them. So I think the fact that I was a kid in college and I had no money and I just really wanted a 4x4 truck, and being that I found a Toyota, which I've always loved, but yeah, I was being a kid in college and having money constraints definitely did not make me go out and buy a new truck. But I don't think I'd ever want to go out and buy a new truck, because I wouldn't want to work on something like that. And the fact that it's easy to work on and I can fix it if it breaks, and it just has taken me throughout thousands of miles, and it's just my own, that is so much more a part of me than anything else that I have, is like what really made me love working on it. But it's also made me realize like everything's pretty similar, and all the engines work in the same sort of way. Everything's just has their own tweaks to it, and it opened my eyes to like how cool it is, how all engines work, and like different types of fuel, different types of combustions, or any type of exhaust or intake systems, and clutches or automatic transmissions, and how they work. It's just like, it's all processes, and they're very interesting to me to try and figure out. So I definitely developed like a intense passion, or maybe obsession, with like learning how engines work. And I really get, oh shit, sorry, I just got a text that said that Sierra burned. So I just lost my train of thought.
I just got a message on Instagram saying that you could see it from their webcam when you're talking.
Oh my God.
Hold on. Their webcam's down. Oh, hold on. Nope, it's not.
So someone said you just pushed through Sierra. They couldn't do anything. They had to wait in the lots, but the structures in the lodge are good. The main lodge, but the forest is fully burned.
For everybody listening right now, I know that there is a pretty serious situation in South Lake Tahoe, and you've got some resorts that are definitely being impacted there. Sierra, Tahoe, Kirkwood. And I know that Sierra is definitely your place of employment during the winter, Chloe, and it's near and dear to your heart. And maybe we just hit that really quick, and maybe it's not really quick. Maybe it's at whatever time you want to take, but just describing your experiences there, how grateful you are for the people, and just giving shout outs to whoever you want to shout out in South Lake.
Oh my God. Yeah. I'm just getting the news that forest that is like my home. I think those trees, every one of them, like I know them, all of them, that they just burned is pretty disheartening news. That mountain is my first home. I would consider it. I spent more hours there than I ever did at any house that I ever was while I worked there. And it's really special, I think, to not just me, but like everyone that's ever worked there. It's such a special place. And it's a sense of like mom and pop, but also just local as it gets. Every local kid is always on that lift, just like talking shit, and you know them by name, and you see them every day, and that's where they live too. They get homeschooled, and Sierra is their whole life, and it's really become my whole life. Like that mountain means everything to me. It's taught me everything I know. Everyone there is just so near and dear to my heart. Tyson and Garrett, worked with Wyatt these last few seasons. Met my partner Chris there, and just all of my best friends, and everywhere. And I spent every day riding those. I know every tree and rock on that fucking mountain. And I know I will always remember every tree, no matter how burned it is or not. It's just like I think everyone will have the same story, that there is no place like Sierra, no mountain you could ever go to that replicates that feeling of being on Grandview or Nob Hill and going through this forest that is just lit up by lichen, and it's beautiful. It's historic too, and it's run by these people that have been there their whole careers, like 30 years. Like the mechanics, all those mechanics, Noel, Chris, Kyle, those are all just like the homies, and they have been there for decades, and that is their life. They've devoted their life to Sierra because it is that worth it to them. And I would do the same, because that is how much I love that place. And it would be the entire world's just like have a loss at losing that place. And I hope that we can rebound from this. And it's really sad. It's really sad, and it's like the worst possible scenario to ever happen to a place that doesn't deserve it. So I really hope that we can get through it.
And maybe that kind of runs right into what defines you outside of the industry, because you sound like somebody that's definitely, as we've already talked about a little bit, passionate about your surroundings and what you're involved with, either directly, indirectly, the people that have been a part of your life to help lift you up, experiences, cultures.
It's a pretty hard question. I guess I like love my job, and I've always loved, I like can't, maybe it's a privilege to say this, but I just like am not capable of working a job that I'm not passionate about. And I haven't been in a position yet that I have had to do that, which I'm lucky to say, and I realize that. But I'm passionate about the things that I do, and I work really hard at something that I'm passionate about. And like that's like Sierra, I'm so passionate about that place and like what they've taught me, and I work as hard as I can for that job. And like I always find jobs that I'm like I can put my whole heart behind, and that's what makes me work so hard at them. Like farming, I'm a farmer and I love agriculture, and that's kind of what came out of my science degree is I really love agricultural physiology and the science behind it, but also just love to farm because it's hard ass honest work, and that is it makes me feel really good at the end of the day and destroys my body, and it's hard and it just like tears you down, but at the end of the day you can like come out of it stronger and just like rewarded, and you have a bunch of fresh food, and it's just I love farming and I love agriculture, and that's definitely a big part of me, as well as like my education, which I was passionate about, and studying plant chemistry and physics, and how that can be used to kind of better our systems and like make an impact on the planet in a way. And that definitely was a big passion of mine in college, which I still hope to pursue in the future. But yeah, just like working hard for what I'm passionate about definitely is what has defined my life so far. I kind of just move from place to place and like chase my passions, and I live a very transient life that way. It's always changing, but I'm always working hard, and I always like I'm working towards something, and that's the biggest part of my life that I love.
Well, Chloe, I do want to like you, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you do represent Never Summer, and as a writer, and I have always been a fan of their products and who they are as a company, and staying true to who they are. Like that's the core of what I value in the snow industry. So I have to ask, like, what's that been like? To me, it had. I mean, outsider looking in, it's got to be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that was such a surprise, and I still can't really wrap my head around it. I guess as a young kid, or when I was in high school, that was always the dream, is to be a sponsored snowboarder and just snowboard and have a brand. And like I kind of got away from that a little bit as time went on, because I just kind of gave up on the hope of like pro snowboarding and just found something in the industry that I was actually much better at. Although I'm like good at snowboarding, I just never really like thought I would go to that extent. And so when this kind of happened, I was still flabbergasted that they would want to support me, even though I don't really put out a lot of content, and I'm really not very good at filming myself. I'm really terrified of cameras, and just that whole idea of like snowboarding for someone else is what really pushed me away from ever pursuing that kind of thing. But with Never Summer, they just really reached out and wanted to support me as a female builder in the industry. And that was crazy, because you don't really hear of that happening a lot, especially with like industry operators and behind the scenes kind of things. People that don't really have as much of a dedication to content producing, and that aren't dedicated to fully just snowboarding. It has a lot more to it than that. And they reached out to me, and they have just been very supportive of me, and just they think that it's great to see women in the industry, and that really speaks a lot to their company, just to be able to support something like that and to want to see more women doing what I'm doing. They even have a lot of sessions for women's sessions that we have, like virtual sessions where we talk about these issues, and we talk about how more women can be involved and be in the industry. So they're really pushing the right side of snow sports, in kind of more of behind the scenes, and also sponsoring riders that just want to snowboard. And they really like the brand is so cool because they support snowboarding. They don't support, the cool factor. They support having fun and sponsoring riders that snowboard because they love it. And that is like the nitty gritty of snowboarding to me. And I don't think it should ever be anything different than to ride, because that's what it's about.
Can I just say too, like circling back to outside of the snow industry, would you ever pursue just like either the brand side of it? Because like you speak so well, you talk so well to all of these issues. You're not just you're not circling around them. You're willing to headbutt them. And I feel like that's really important for brands to have somebody on board like that. If you were to step out of the machine, based on everything that you've talked about being who you are outside of the industry and what you believe in, who you're all about, and the things that you participated in thus far in your career, if somebody were to ever approach you and say like, hey, would you consider doing this for us? Because you seem to be a fantastic, wonderful ambassador for snowboarding culture and encompass everything that we would love to have a part of a marketing platform, team manager avenue. Like, would you do that?
That's a hard question. I mean, I'm not one to turn down opportunities like that, but I don't really like see that being, a sort of career for me. I feel like I just like have this passion for being in the machine, and like I love the industry and where it is, and I know that so many people talk about having that end goal of being like, where do you want to be with this, and where do you want to become, and how far do you want to take this so you don't become stagnant. But I just don't have that vision of myself, and I kind of have a very short lens on my future, and it's because I'm taking things as they come more so than planning to become something that I dream of, because I never dreamed of being where I am. This is a dream, but it's just kind of happened. I got in the cat after I graduated college because I wanted experience in a machine for agriculture, and I just wanted to snowboard every day. I never at any point thought that I would get in a cat and fall in love with it and be passionate and just want to be like the best that I can be. I never had that idea. It just kind of happened. I just discovered this knack and this like love for it, and I just wanted to see how far I can take it, and I'm kind of still on that path of like being in it because I love it, and I also love snowboarding, and that's just come hand in hand. But there's also this looming love of other things that I've really left behind when I graduated college and got my degree. So it's hard to perceive like this extensive end goal in the industry when I'm just kind of living this moment and putting off a lot of other passions just to enjoy it at the moment. So
on the lighter heart of subjects, I do want to jump into Emily O'Connor's special guest question. Is she your teammate on Never Summer?
Yeah, she is a really rad snowboarder. She is also a hand crew at Trollhaugen and just a cool girl, good friend.
I've got her special guest question for you, so I will go ahead and play it now.
Hey, Chloe and Parker. This is Emily. So my question for Chloe is, what is your favorite thing about being a cat driver? Really looking forward to hearing your answer. Have a good one, guys. Bye.
Everything about being a cat since day one has just been magical. And it's just like you are forming the most perfect white, just like glistening ice balls into whatever it is. Even when I first got in a cat and I was watching someone flat track, I could not just blink. It was amazing. All of the snow around you is just glistening, and it's white and purple, and the sun setting, or it's right. You're in this ecosystem, or in this place in the world where if you weren't in a cat, it would be pretty harsh. You would have had to hike up there. It would have been dark. You would have been cold. You're getting to see the forest in the middle of the night in just immense snowstorms or just fresh snow or whatever condition. And you're out there pretty much alone in this harsh environment, just in your heated cat, listening to music, bumping subs with these lights. It's just, I still can't get over it. Every time I'm in a cat, it's just a magical experience. And I guess outside of that, which, never gets old, it's kind of the idea of like building parks and making enjoyment for people is like so rewarding. It is recreation, but it's also like people are there and they are having the time of their life, and that's because of you. That's because of what you've decided to put out there, and what all your hard work is actually helping make a difference in someone else's life, whether it's like building the smallest jump for the kid that goes there every weekend to learn how to just do his first air and just like making it perfect for him, or just like grooming out and building like the big jump to see someone do the craziest trick that you've ever seen. It's just, the possibilities are endless, and you get to be like that creative master behind it, and I find that so rewarding personally.
I think that's very well put as well. You never really get the opportunity to do anything different, I think, in life that quite scratches the itch, so to speak, for a rewarding career experience. I myself have definitely struggled with attempting to find something else that I can be passionate about. It's so incredibly difficult to transition out of. There is nothing on earth like it that is even remotely similar with respect to just a job. You're hitting the nail on the head. You've got a product that you're providing for somebody to be recreating on, but at the same time, you're making their day amazing by being a part of that thing that you just pieced together on snow. You get to drive a $500,000 piece of equipment that somebody's entrusting you with. You're pushing around snow. And the people that you're doing it with, you may not, for some reason or another, at the beginning of the year, I don't want to say like see eye to eye with, but you may not have the most in common with them. But the instant that one of those individuals needs help, you're there, And
oh yeah,
there's
sure.
nothing like that. I mean, I'll take that back. I'm sure there are other jobs out there that come close, but with the full circle of I built this and then I'm going to go and recreate on it and ride on it, and it's snow. There's nothing else like that for sure. And that to me it's magical. Again, magic is like the word of the evening.
Yeah, and there's really nothing like pushing a big ass pile of snow with a bunch of people and just seeing how it just all unfolds. Just the massive amount of snow that you can move with these machines blows my mind. I wish I had a number to like how many tons of snow can be pushed in like 8 hours. It just blows my mind what I can see done and what I've done, just being in that push road for like 12 hours or just like weeks on end, just seeing something unfold, because there's no other way we could have done that ever than without that machine. So
Chloe, I say we get into the push road question of the day. It's definitely my favorite part of the show. And we got some really cool people that have contributed, so we'll jump right into it. I'll play the intro. Here we go.
The push road question of the day.
That is right.
So
Push road question of the day. With the best 6-year-old on the planet introducing it. For sure. We've got a number of people that have contributed, but I really enjoy picking like 3 to 4 folks to contribute to the episode on top of all the special guest questions that we do have. And if you feel like you want to contribute to the Push Road question of the day, you can do that. Just look for the Instagram story to drop either Tuesday or Wednesday with the introduction photo of the guest that we are interviewing that week. So if the question that you have doesn't fit in the little box, you can always send us a DM. So I get a lot of that. It's, hey, my question doesn't fit, send us a DM. And you can write us a novel. I do think there are a limited number of characters that you can contribute, so just be mindful of that still too. But send us a DM if it's beyond like a couple sentences. Okay, Chloe, your first Push Road question comes from Mr. Colin Hales. And Colin Hales asks, we all need a good story. What's your favorite memory of your summer on Mount Hood?
Colin, he's a good guy. Like that guy. My favorite memory. There are so many. There's just so many. Every night was like top the last one, you know? I think every sunrise was like its own memory to me. That's a pretty lame answer, but I just like can't get over it. Every morning when the sun rises, there is just a little snapshot of that moment in my brain. And that is what keeps me going to the next day. Even like 10 days in a row on hill, long hours. Every morning is like a little breath of fresh air to just watch the sunrise over the distance. I wish I had a better sorry. I wish I had a better answer to that.
I don't know. I'm definitely a sucker for a sunrise or a sunset. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer here for sure. Don't feel bad. But yeah, like you probably have tons of photos too.
I do, yeah. I have photos of every sunrise, every push road, and every sense of every distance. It's like I think I have like about 20,000 photos on my phone, and they're all like snowcat photos. I think I really enjoyed. I don't know if like everyone feels the same way about this. I love the push road. I love it. I love being in it. I don't care how many hours. Like I know after probably 12 hours in a push road, like I start to get kind of sore, like my back hurts and it's like not as fun anymore. But it's just like you're just pushing massive amounts of snow, building, pushing a jump or whatever it is, or even just grading out an entire crevasse and trying to push all the snow out. There's like an end goal, which is helpful because you kind of get lost in it. But it is so therapeutic for me to be in that push road, and I have not done it as much ever than I have this past few months this summer, just constantly for like 3 weeks. That's all I did every day for long shifts every day. I really enjoyed it though.
Dude, I think the last time maybe we even talked about the push road was with Ruben Cameron for his episode. Like that was definitely we surmised what that was for somebody.
Yeah, it's good space to like think and just do something. It reminds me of farming. I mean, it is snow farming and the bare essence of it. But like when I'm farming or in the field, just kind of like doing whatever is necessary, plowing or tilling or just like weeding in like a actual farm. It is the best place to go through all of your biggest troubles in life. You're like going through everything that you're having issues with, like trying to just like do like you don't even try to, it just happens. Like your brain starts to like attack itself and you're trying to like fix it. I guess is the best way to explain it, but it's like really therapeutic and it's you're actually doing something. It's not just like moving snow around. Like you have an end goal, and you can see that product at the end and have gone through so many hours of making it that. So it's been cool. How much snow I pushed this summer is more snow than I've ever pushed in the last 3 years, but also it is my favorite memory of my time there, I think.
I do have, let's see, Chris Meyer has your next push road question, and Chris goes a little deep here. I like it. Chris asks, if given the chance to change the industry, how would you influence the next generation to do so?
That's a really good question. I think that the industry is going in a really good direction right now with a lot of different aspects. I think that something I would change about the snow industry as a whole is kind of like bringing it back to the roots of like why we're all doing this, like why we all love snowboarding and skiing, just like the essence of like loving that thrill and like focusing on that rather than focusing on how you look or like what kind of brands you're wearing or like I'm riding this board and like, you know, kind of having that more of like an image. I don't like that part of the industry as much. I really like what snowboarding is and like what it means. And I do think a lot of this industry is going in the right direction. I love what Crush is doing with Snowboy. I think that is revolutionary. It's kind of like it is a part of the image, but it's also like creating very creative builds that are meant to be ridden, and like not only doing that but also having these builds that are super creative be for really good causes, whether it's breast cancer awareness or whether it's Pacific Islander or Asian hate awareness and like bringing more light to actually like really tough issues that are going on, and using snowboarding as a catalyst to bring people together and like spread awareness on these issues is, I think, the most revolutionary thing happening in snowboarding right now, because it's bringing us back to the essence of like loving to ride and like creating things that people have so much fun on that have never been seen before, and kind of breaking away from the contest style of things and, you know, straight lines and doing things like they've always been done for the bigger contests and slow styles. And I think that over time, like those will lose their importance in the industry as like it evolves, but they do have their importance. Contests have always and always will be a part of the industry, but I think that I would love to see it, a lot of it shift towards going back to the love of it and like the creativity of builds and building things that are for the rider and are for like the love of riding and skiing. And I think that's the most important part of it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think if you were going to influence the industry in any capacity, it would be what can we do either directly or indirectly that's going to make the biggest impact as a group, like power in numbers, right? And then how are we going to make that? Because right now I feel like we're at the point where it's almost, radical movements are making radical change. And so whether those are aggressive or whether they are in your face or whether they are very methodical and super trendy, however they unfold. I think that's a great point. Yeah, I think that's a really great point.
Yeah, I mean, just the industry generally is old, and it's kind of needs some change and needs more color and needs more diversity, and it needs more opportunities for that to happen. More women in the industry, seeing like all of these changes and making it more of an accepting place for everyone, as well as like an affordable, it'll be less and less affordable as time goes on because the world is going to shit and like the climate is really not doing great. But just creating an environment where like that is possible and just shifting towards that, I think would help a lot.
I think it would too. I think it would definitely help. Let's see. Justin Washam. Justin asks, and I really like this question. How was the learning curve learning how to operate on the wet slush of Hood compared to Cali?
Justin, I loved working with him. He was a really hard worker. Great guy too. Shout out to Bogus for him. But yeah, the learning curve was steep and fast, and I like knew it was going to be that way. I had an idea, I haven't really had a lot of experience with slushy snow, very little to none before I went there. So I had as much advice as I could gather before I went there, but I kind of told myself like this make or break, if I don't make it here, then it's kind of like a sign. Like I'm not able to tackle this type of snow condition. Like it's a sign that, maybe it's not for me. I was just kind of put myself in that position. So I went guns blazing as soon as I got there and was like, let's go. I know this is going to be hard. And it was pretty difficult trying to throw a lot of what I already knew aside and try and learn everything over again with like working the snow differently, how it's going to melt, how you back blade a lip and it's already melted out from under you as you're back blading it, and just trying to learn how to like work around things that I usually didn't have to work around. It was tough, but I think like after a while I kind of got the hang of it, and I got some really great pointers and some really good supervision, I guess. Like Weasel was, he's a G with the snow, and he had a lot of good advice to give me, and Danny did too. And it was just like a really good learning environment, which I felt like I could always ask questions and like just try and figure it out. And in the end, it's just snow. And that was it. That was the thing that got me through. It's just snow. No matter what happens, it's just water. Like it'll work itself out in the end, and it really helped me.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point. And Weasel is a G. He is definitely a G. He is no filter, by the way. That guy is.
Yeah.
That guy is, dude.
That is my favorite part about him, is that he does not give a fuck at all, and he will say whatever needs to be said. And I think that's what makes him a really good supervisor. He won't let me say that, but it's true.
I need to get him on the blade dive too. He may turn me down, but
I've been telling him for months.
Throwing it out there now. Weasel, if you want to come on the podcast, let's make it happen, man. Let's do it.
Yeah, stir the pot.
I'm down. Let's do it. I'm so down. Well, Chloe, thanks for participating in today's Push Road Questions of the Day.
The Push Road Question of the Day.
I mean, you earned that college degree in botany. And if you were to ever, I mean, I know we're talking about the future again, but do you think, maybe I'll phrase it like this, do you think that maybe that degree and what you're doing right now come together and be something amazing? Or do you see them as two different things, like maybe you've fallen back on that degree?
I have had this in the back of my mind since I started this, and since I realized how much I like being in a cat. And I've tried so hard to put the two together, and it's just not possible. I mean, the closest I can get to what I want to do with science is like snow farming, because it's like a type of agriculture, but it's like just very, very thinly related. It's not even like, a conceivable idea. It's just like I love two different things that go so separately. They're so separate. Like cat operations happens in high elevations, on snow, in a mountain. And I want to, on the other side of things, work in a lab and create, any types of agricultural genetic technologies, and like work towards finding climate solutions with science, and like with agricultural advancements and types of things that don't happen in extreme conditions. They happen, in arable land, and with conditions that are appropriate for growing food, or any types of things like that. So I'm really, really torn, I guess. And this love that I have for the science that I studied is so still in the back of my mind. And I've tried to break away, and I've talked to so many operators about this, like ask them, have you taken a break? Have you ever just stopped for a few years to like pursue something else? And like a lot of the operators that I've talked to they haven't done that. They haven't been able to take that break. And I think, like, I always wonder, like, if I did get out of the cat, could I go back in? And if I didn't get out of the cat, could I ever pursue science anymore? Because, a science degree is only good for so many years until it becomes less relevant than it was when you first got it. So every year that I've chosen to come back into the cat was another year where I'm risking throwing away that degree. And it's really hard for me. And for the last year, I applied to a job, and I decided that if I got it, I would take it and I would quit what I'm doing. And I did get it. And I turned it down.
Wow.
And
what was it?
It was a research position at a very high-end, like world-renowned science institute in San Diego, researching agricultural technology for climate solutions. So exactly what I wanted to do. But the pay wasn't, it wasn't sustainable. And neither is this pay, but it's almost like I don't want to give up what I've got going, because I love, it's just hard to get out. I don't want to quit. I love being in a cat.
I want to go here, but along those lines, with maybe either how difficult or easy it is to make a career out of the snow industry sustainable, and whether or not I've said it before, like when Isabel and I jumped on the podcast, I was referencing, somebody's version of sustainable may be different than mine or yours. Somebody may want to live in a hovel or a trash can. I mean, whatever it is, like somebody's version of what they deem a sustainable lifestyle may be different. And you may disagree with that, but I do think that there are a couple things that for me come into play, and that's a safe location, sound roof over your head, the ability to provide food, health insurance, and a way of taking care of your family or yourself. Those are key. Like, I have to have those. Those are non-negotiable. So I guess the question really is, does it depend on kind of like the lifestyle choices to have a sustainable career in the snow industry?
Yeah, I think it definitely requires some certain lifestyle choices to be able to continue life and doing this job and working in the snow industry, in an industry that, you're working in a cat that is in a machine that is worth so much money, and you're getting paid less than someone that's working at Safeway down the street. And although that job is equally as important, and it's, nothing bad to say about that, it's just, we don't really value the people that are working in this industry. And that does, on their side of things, those that run all of these resorts, like, it's not sustainable for them to pay people this little so that they can barely survive, because they want to have that much profit. It's not sustainable for them because those people will eventually have to quit, and they will not be able to find more people that have the skills that they've earned for so long if they can't pay them enough to continue that. And that's goes with the whole everything that's around the snow industry. It's very expensive. It's expensive to live in these towns. It's expensive to travel up the mountain. Gas is always more expensive there. Um, Everything's more expensive, yet we are paid the least of any industry to do our job. And that is absolutely something that needs to change. Otherwise, there will be no more operators that can afford to work and learn. And there will be a shortage, which I think I've seen, at least recently, a shortage of young operators that are trying to get jobs and learn more and have years behind them because they just had to quit because they have no choice. They can't live and work and do this because they want to. And I think personally, I've been able to make it work because of the situation that I pay rent only in the months that I live there, and then I travel to go work somewhere else and work seasonally and do something somewhere else, and I just make it work with what I have. But I think that's not as easy to say for everyone. So definitely depends on your lifestyle choices and just what you are able to make work so that you can work this job. It shouldn't be like that. You shouldn't have to change your whole life so you can afford to work a job. You should be paid enough to be able to live on that job and not have to give up so much for it.
I agree with you. I definitely think that the industry as a whole should step up and start paying people more money. And I'm happy to go on the record and say that. I definitely think that it's a massive issue.
It's a big issue. And I've actually, recently have seen or heard of or talked to a lot of operators that are in supervisor roles or in those kinds of positions to fight to get their workers more money, to get their operators more money so that they can afford to work there. And like that, I've seen success or I've heard of success. And I think that is like really amazing to do because those departments can afford to pay their operators more in certain bigger mountains especially. And if we can fight to get people the pay that they deserve, then we will be able to keep them for more years and have a more quality out of their work and better product in the future.
Yeah, I think radical change is often necessary in order to make the right steps forward. And sometimes those radical movements or conversations are awkward for the people that are having to listen to them, but for the folks that are stepping forward and advocating for the needs, it's very easy. It's very necessary. And sometimes often there's offense that's taken to having those types of conversations. Maybe it's the general manager or the director that's having to listen to the conversation, but they're not necessarily in the situation that the operator's in. Does that make sense? Like, you've got somebody that's making a whole bunch of money that's sitting down having to listen to somebody that doesn't really make a whole bunch of money and is trying to feed their family, pay their rent, and get their truck filled up for the week so that they can hoof it up to the mountain and sit in the chair and get behind the sticks and push snow. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, those people are the unsung heroes right now, advocating for more pay for their employees and their coworkers, and that is the only way it's going to change if people do that. And it's amazing that some are willing to put their job on the line to get people that they work with more money. I think that's really admirable.
Your next special guest question, we're gonna do another 1-2 punch, which I'm super excited about. Maybe a question in between, actually. Sorry, but the first one is going to be from Weasel himself, John O'Boyle. So here we go.
Chloe, Parker, it's Weasel! Happy to be back to ask another question for another rad operator. With ski resort towns having a higher than average suicide rate and a growing mental health crisis, how do you believe that resorts could help their working communities achieve a happier life outside of work? And on a lighter topic, since I know you love radio chatter, what has been the most obnoxious radio banter you've had to listen to? Hope you had a rad road trip home.
Where's that East Coaster accent? He promised me.
I was wondering that too. And the first time he sent over a question, I was like, man, I feel like the last time I talked to him on the phone, which is very briefly, there was a lot more like Northeasterner coming out of him. And the
God,
special guest,
that is my favorite accent.
It was intense. And the special guest questions that he's contributed, I was like, where did it go? Weasel, we need more East Coast accent, bro.
That's great. Well, that's a really good question.
Deep question.
I think it kind of touches on what we just talked about, like a little bit, I guess. Just the pay is like really just number one, I feel like, because if you can't afford to buy food, then how are you going to ever be happy, really? Generally, just that is really it. Like, pay your workers a livable wage and they will be able to come back and afford to live in that town, because that town is very expensive to live in, and it's starting to be comparable to the Bay Area to live in Tahoe. It's driving people out. All of the housing is getting bought out by vacation rental owners, and it's hard to find places to live, and it's hard to afford anywhere anymore because the prices have been driven up. And I think that is the number one thing, like that pyramid of basic human needs, of like having security and a house over your head. Like, those are the very basic things that humans need. And without that, or with the fear of losing that because of how little you're getting paid, it's not going to help this. So step one, pay more. I think creating more opportunities to learn and move up in the industry will definitely help people that are passionate about it not feel like they're giving up their life just by being stagnant, like creating opportunities for workers to excel, learn new skills that can better them outside of the snow industry, really like setting them up for success, whether or not it's there, just teaching everyone the skills that they need to be the best at their job, and creating opportunities for them to move forward and move up in that hierarchy, I think would be very helpful too.
I agree. I definitely think that's a great step number one. And I definitely think that a very simple way of realizing it would be like you're talking about, and like we've mentioned before in our discussion, is the older generation, the older folks, the old heads, whatever we want to call them. I mean, I'm old. I'm 37, so I'm probably pretty old in the industry. But if we could invest in the youth and realize that they have valuable contributions, and then if these people could realize that they were once in the same shoes and in the same similar situations, I feel like there would be a lot more conversations created. Like I've mentioned before, like direct mentoring, I think would be a really great idea. Like if you took a GM and you plug them in with a frontline employee, like a lift operator, instead of filtering it and having like the GM choose who they wanted to mentor, having human resources pick who would be a good person, like pick the most awkward thing that you could possibly pick, which would be somebody that you don't know on the front line, and talk to them and figure out what their daily life is like. That would be sick. I think that would be an amazing conversation.
I think that would be really helpful. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I feel like a ski resort is just kind of like a big family. I don't know if that's just the ski resorts that I've worked at. Sierra just feels like a really big family, and everyone knows everyone by name, and just having that sense of like familiarity and just community within all of these people that all work together, because it is a family. A ski resort can only operate with the help of all different departments. You can't have lift maintenance without the mechanics that help and fix the snowmobiles, or that work on the cats, that groom the runs, that let the the instructors operate or instruct on, and just having, ski patrol there to keep everyone safe. Like, we're all working together, and it would not run without each and every one of us. And having that sense of community and having that mentorship within all different departments would just help that family like grow closer. And what I've seen at Sierra, and just knowing everyone by name and being able to chat anyone up, and kind of have the opportunity for a lot of people to jump in between departments and learn different skills, so they're actually very useful in a lot of different ways. Like that I've seen that be really helpful to a lot of workers that were troubled, or have young and in need of mentorship in that sense.
Yeah, I had it put to me really well this week, actually. They want to talk about the change that they would like to see, but they're not willing to hire the change that they would like to see.
Yeah,
I was blown away by that comment. Like, just so stoked to hear somebody say that. That was amazing. That was just one of my biggest takeaways from the week. Other than the points that you've made so far in our conversation, my goodness, you've had some amazing things to say.
I definitely think that, the snow industry, in the way that it is, and all the costs taken under consideration, it is very privileged. It's a very privileged part of society that gets to do what we do. And that is why we see so little diversity. And it's very disheartening to know that that is like a big barrier to the entry of a lot of ways, like learning how to ski or snowboard. Like, if you don't live near a mountain, you have to pay a lot of money for that. And a lot of people can't afford to do that. And the people that can afford to do that are in a certain social or racial status that they're able to have those opportunities. And that just weeds a lot of people out. And those people that do get through, they are, very alone too. And it's just like, having very little diversity does not help any type of collective mental health or stability. And that is a very big problem whether it comes to races or genders, just generally having more diversity, more representation, and making that able to happen. And more so, I feel like it really comes down to cost.
Weasel did have a second part to that question, and that was the radio banter aspect of it.
Banter.
I do want to hear that. I don't really have a great segue out of what we were talking about, because I kind of want to keep talking about it, but I think we'll be able to hit it a little later. So, but I want you to finish Weasel's question too, because I thought that was a good two-parter.
Yeah, I don't love the radio. I like talking into it when I have to, but I really don't like it. I don't like talking on the radio, because I just don't like to listen to myself talk. Hence this podcast. It's kind of hard for me, but
I don't know. You're kind of crushing it on the podcast. I would disagree with that statement.
I definitely hate it, or I did hate it so much when just at random times people like to play their shitty music for like 15 seconds at a time. And I'm over here like, what? Like, it's always just the worst songs. And it was just really irritating to me, because it happens so much in Timberline. And I really came to love it at the end, where it was just like, it was kind of cute. Like, okay, you feel like you're not alone, or you're bored or whatever. But it really got on my nerves at the beginning. But I will admit, at the end, I kind of liked it a little bit. Like, it grew on me, and I might or might not have done it a couple times. But
well, I have to ask, like, what were you keying in? Were you keying in I mean, I don't know, like some Frank Sinatra? Were you keying in some Incubus? Were you keying in some
Oh my
Led
God.
Zeppelin? Like, what were you keying in over the radio for everybody to listen to?
It was always the weirdest songs that came on my shuffle because it was never like a good, and just the weirdest song that was at the weirdest point. I just wanted to hit him back harder, you know. But I don't know. You never really know what comes on my shuffle. I got like probably 4,000 songs, and they all are very different genres. But I do really love my music, so I get it.
All right, I have another special guest question for you. 1-2 punch here this time with Corey Tredden and Brandon Dodds. So I'll play Corey's question for you right now. Here we go.
What up, Blade Dive family? Corey Tredden here. Parker, thanks for letting me ask a few questions. Chloe, since you popped up on the Instagram scene, I've been inspired by your grind, drive, and love for operating. You seem determined to learn all aspects of building and maintaining terrain parks. That being said, women bring a unique perspective and skill set to the operating world. How do you think leadership teams can better support women in the workplace? What management styles should grooming departments incorporate to create a more inclusive environment? And ultimately, I'd like to see more women operating, and kind of just wondering your thoughts on how we get there. Also, your old vehicles are pretty badass. Kind of just curious if you have any names for them. I feel like vehicles of a certain age deserve a name. Thanks, Chloe, and remember, always stay hungry.
Well, I would say that first you gotta hire them.
This is a good point.
Yeah. So I mean, if you don't have any women applying for the jobs, then you can't hire them. So it's hard for a lot of women to feel like they can do these jobs if they don't see other women doing them. And it's kind of this like negative loop or a positive loop of negativity, I guess. It's like a woman feels like she wants to do this job, but she doesn't, it's all men doing it. So she doesn't feel like she can do it or should do it. Unfortunately, like a lot of women feel like they can't do these jobs because they don't see other women doing it. I've had a lot of women come to me and say they admire what I'm doing and they don't know how they could ever do it. And it blows me away because they absolutely can do it if they had the opportunity to learn and just try and fail or try and succeed, but at least have the opportunity to try it. I think like it starts with hiring women. If you have someone that is on, on that, if you have someone that has applied among a pool of other applicants, consider it. Even though she is a woman, it shouldn't even be a question, but it is, and it always has been. And that's that barrier, is that there is extra doubt because of the female aspect. And there was doubt when I applied for the job too. I know that there was doubt. It was very clear to me that I was told that it might not be for me. I was told that I was going to be given a shot, but that it wasn't for sure going to work out. And that almost encouraged me more to be like, well, I'll show you. But
yeah, fuck off. I'm going to get this job.
Yeah. And like, it takes hiring the women that apply if they are, if you give them that opportunity to just show you that they are capable or passionate. And as a woman, I am the only woman up until this last season at Sierra. I was the only woman in a whole building of 5 departments.
Wow.
And that last season changed. There was another woman on the flat tracking operating crew. And that was really awesome to see. And it was just also, I've had those women come to me and also be like, how can I do this? And I tell them, apply. And then once you apply, don't give up, because that's what I did. I did not let the person that I was trying to get the job from go for a second. I called back 4 times. I was there at at the hiring fairs, and I drove 8 hours just to be there, and I was like, you need to hire me on, give me a shot. And it shouldn't be that hard, but it was. And I think the more women we see in the industry, the more that'll change. It just takes taking that first step of like hiring women. And
oh, good. Sorry.
to be fair, I think women have a very different perception on operating machines. And I've been told this a lot, especially when I started, that a lot of operators think that women make very good operators because they are more gentle to the machine and have more of like that perception of detail and just have more patience when it comes to like learning things or like a gentler touch. And I have found that to be true in a lot of senses.
Do you think that people are afraid to do that? Do you think that that's why those conversations don't happen? Do you think it's just awkward for some people?
I think a lot of people are afraid to do it. I think a lot of people are afraid to stand up and be like, what you just said is not cool. Don't say that. Or, because they're afraid to stand up for something because it's against the status quo of how things have been for so long. And it's hard being a woman and coming into that environment and feeling like you're the only one standing up for it. Because in that sense, then you're still the outlier and you always were. And it's really hard to feel like you have a voice if you're trying to stand up for yourself with nobody else around supporting that. And just backing it and be like, you're right. Like, she's right. Like, that's not cool. You can't act like that. It's a very hard topic to bring up especially with men because they don't really understand in a lot of ways. And it's, I've had experiences where I've had to express my discontentment with certain situations because I want to feel comfortable and safe in the place that I work. And if there is an issue, it needs to be raised. It does not just get swept under the rug because it will come back. And if it comes back multiple times, that's where I just draw the line and I have to say something. And that is at that point where I need to, or any woman needs to find support and be like, you're right, that's not fucking cool. Let's nip this in the butt so it doesn't happen again, and set that status quo of like what is right and what isn't. And until we can comfortably get at that point, it's just going to be a constant battle for women in the industry to try and like have a voice and feel like they're equal and feel like they're being taken seriously.
And I think too, like there are a couple other things that maybe fold into that too. Like there's the whole shame component as well. Like you've got maybe even women who are leaders and men who are leaders. Maybe they're GMs, directors, managers, however you see it, or whatever your title is. But that's a whole other thing too, is that we have this thing that we're creating for people that is a recreational aspect of outdoor activity that you can participate in. But because somebody may have a certain way of dealing with things, others kind of either get ran over, whatever, however we want to term it. But it's always funny to me when people feel like they have this hierarchy of understanding that somebody below them may not have, even though they're contributing with such great value through the guest interaction, face-to-face, frontline experience. And yet the manager feels like they have to be the superior person, whether it's a piece of shame or sexism or derogatory comments and it's not even direct. Sometimes it's indirectly or under their breath, or they've been raised that way and they don't even realize they're saying these things out loud, but yet they are, because that's how they're kind of hardwired. And that to me is the most frustrating thing to deal with, is that people sometimes don't even realize that that's how they're behaving, and they're doing it, and then they are hurting somebody, and the byproduct is that it's not talked about, and then it festers, and then it becomes this massive issue. When I think I wish I don't know. I've gotten in trouble for speaking up so many different times that I sometimes feel as though I myself have been put into positions of shame where it's not okay to speak up on an issue because this person has a job title that's more important to yours. It's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Shouldn't that person be held to the same standard that I'm being held to? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like everyone should speak up if they feel something's not right. And that is, that's everyone's right. And there should be no question of whose status is more important when there's one person that is being left out of that equation. And I think the inclusivity of it is important, like bringing everyone on the same page. And especially as a manager or in that management role, like that is your job, to create that inclusivity and to create an environment that is healthy for everyone and also inclusive and just something that where everyone can work together. And you have to do that. You have to create that environment because that's your role in managing people. I think that's really important, and it should never matter what anyone's role is if they're not treating people the right way. Or
Is that maybe part of the reason why you think there are few women operators?
Yeah, I think that there's so many, hurdles to jump through to be the only woman and to make a stake for yourself and show that you are capable. And it's almost like you have to work twice as hard and you have to prove yourself twice as much just to keep going, because you are the only woman and you want to make others know that it doesn't matter what your gender is, because you can still be successful just like they are, if not more. So the hurdle is getting in there and then staying in there despite all the obstacles put in front of you. And that is something that needs to change, just so that we can move past it, I think.
Do you have any names for the older vehicles that you do have?
Yeah, well, I have a 1984 Toyota Tercel 4-wheel drive wagon. It's got a 2-inch lift on it. It's so sick.
No
it's
way.
Just sitting in my yard right now because I haven't been home long enough to just actually work on it. But that one, I think I didn't really have a name because I haven't really driven it that much. But my truck's name is Sabbath.
Sabbath.
It's black. I really love Black Sabbath, and the first CD I ever bought for it was a Black Sabbath CD, and it's just stuck ever since. And I've don't really name a lot. I don't never name my cats because I don't feel like I have one cat. I always kind of switch in between cats at work, but my truck, Sabbath for sure.
Sabbath. So
got
sick.
The character.
So sick. Brandon Dodds has another special guest question for you. I know this one is kind of along the lines of what I wanted to ask you, so I think it's a really good segue.
Hey, what's up, Blade Dive? Chloe and Parker. Thanks for having me on again. Chloe, so it was really cool to meet you last spring. We were up there for the monster shoot at Sierra at Tahoe, and can't thank you enough, and want to give a huge shout out to everybody at Sierra. Can't thank you all enough. You made our job so much easier, and it was just a pleasure to work with everybody, so thank you. And Chloe, so my question, it's not so much a question as per se. I was just hoping to get you to speak on a subject that we've been talking about a lot on here, and it's just it's the training in a positive environment. You spoke very highly of Tyson and Garrett, your two mentors there at Sierra, and just the type of environment they create there. And, it seems like you guys have great communication. They're very positive. They've been nurturing to you. I know they've given you a lot of freedom. I know they've shared all their knowledge with you from what it sounds, and they're not holding anything back. So yeah, I just thought it was really cool when you were talking about that, and maybe you can just speak on that and just kind of tell everybody that's listening what it's like learning in a positive environment like that and how it's benefited you as an operator. Hope all is well. You guys hope everyone's staying safe in South Lake, and that they can get this fire at least under control enough to keep it away from the resorts and the towns. So thinking about everyone. Anyways, hope all is good. See you guys.
Thanks, Brandon. I love that guy. He's so great. What a nice guy. Yeah, I think the fire definitely hit Sierra pretty hard, and we're all hoping that we can make it through and that it won't hit the town. It's going right for it right now. So positive thoughts definitely help. But that was a very good question or subject matter. I would not be who I am without Tyson and Garrett and everything that I learned at Sierra. I would probably not have come back a year later if I didn't have the experience that I did. Just this is like that mentorship and that just helpful environment, like very positive learning environment, is what makes me want to keep coming back, because I have these incredible operators. Tyson and Garrett are just like the most incredible operators I've ever seen work magic on snow, and being able to learn from them has been a privilege, I think, for me. And I've really grown close to them as my mentors, and been able to really feel like I am progressing my skills, and they're really helping me with that. And that's just like, that's what made my experience so special, is not only the resort that I love, but also being in a department where I'm actually wanted to feel like I can excel and I can have these opportunities to really test myself and challenge myself and learn from that and fail, because if I don't fail, then I'm really not learning. And I'm always just trying to get to that next level where I feel like I'm progressing, and they're really set me up for that. And honestly, I just can't speak any more highly of anyone else than Garrett. Like, Garrett has been my number one cheerleader from the start. And I started at Sierra as a flat tracker for half a season. I did half a season, but from the first day in a cat where I was training, I was wondering when I could go learn how to groom the jumps. And I was still like in free grooming, and he was like, "Oh, this is not the right department for you. Maybe in like 4 or 5 years, once you really get the hang of it." And I was like, I never really let that go. I was like, okay, well, I just really want to learn how to do that. And I got the hang of the cat after a while. I just learn how to operate the cat and start grooming runs and stuff, but I never like took my eyes off of that. Like, how do I do that? That looks so sick. And I just kept going, like maybe one day I'll get there. And I met Garrett. He's been at Sierra for over a decade, and I got to talking with him, and he just like saw how much interest I had in it, and he just let me ride along with him. And I rode along with him for probably upwards to like 30 hours of my free time, just like trying to learn and see what he was doing, and just like so interested in like the technicality of it. And I did that for so long that eventually he like let me start pushing when we had like closed mountain days with too much snow, and like eventually was pushing for me to get hired into parks halfway through my first season. And he's really like the reason that I was hired, with like half a season behind me and no previous experience in parks besides just like snowboarding. So I definitely think he is the catalyst to why I'm here. And he won't ever say it. He'll say it was all me, but he's just so humble.
Shout out to Garrett. Heck yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You did something that I thought was really cool, and it's published as well. It's on the internet, and what's cool is that people can go and check this out. But you were given the chance to design and build a park layout, correct?
Yeah. It was sprung on me like 5 or 6 hours before my shift. Tyson just calls me in the middle of my sleep, he just wakes me up, and I have like a special ringtone for him because he calls at random times, and otherwise I won't wake up. And he doesn't really think about it, but
Is it the alarm? Is it like the dun, 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 like, or is it a very nice ringtone, or
it's just a random one I think I chose, but one that doesn't like that
French rap?
that stays on. Yeah, exactly. And he calls me and he's like, "Hey, so this park is yours and you're gonna design and build it." Okay, cool. I was like, holy shit, what? I've never had the chance to even like think about designing a whole park myself and like how that would go. And like I hung up the phone. I was like, holy shit. Like I didn't go back to sleep. I just brought out a notebook and I started drawing all these features out and like trying to make a plan. And I got to work that night and just had the notebook in hand. And I was like, Garrett, what the fuck do I do? And he was like, I've never like written anything down. Like you don't know until you get out there. And that's like the biggest lesson was like the run changes so much with what you build and how it like kind of forms itself from under you as you build features. And that was the most insanely amazing experience to be able to like design and build my own park with like exactly what I wanted with the help of Tyson, which was he was a big help with that. I could not have done it alone, but he definitely guided me through it and helped me be successful with it. And I got to see it through to the end, and it was really even better than I ever would have imagined it to be. And that was it. After that, I was hooked. I'm like, okay, I want to do this again. Let's go build one over there. It was a really great experience. And then just being able to have feedback too from riders and from park staff and from other operators, and being able to see like what I can improve on and what is like really great and what is kind of problematic, and just like having that experience just shaped me completely as an operator this last season.
Yeah, being believed in is, I think that's key to development, and then if you've got help, I mean, that's even more key to development too. Instead of being like, one of the questions I wanted to ask you was whether or not you felt like you were kind of thrown into the deep end and kind of told to sink or swim, or starting small, with that whole build, design, and layout. And if that was how it was, then cool. But if it wasn't, it sounds like it was not. It sounds like it was definitely, yeah, I might call you in the middle of the night or whenever and let you know that this is what's happening. But it's not like you were just left to your own devices to come up with something that may or may not work.
Yeah, I was given enough freedom with that to feel like I was freaking out a few times where I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, where do I put this? And like, but I was able to kind of push myself to be able to like try things and then build a hip, and then have Tyson come through like the next day and be like look at where this is, and like, would you be able to hit this? And it's like, oh shit, like I gotta move it uphill like 30 feet. And it's just like kind of thinking a little differently and learning how to do that, because I've never really thought about like placing different features in certain distance apart, and like getting that map of like, as a writer, what you want to see and like how you want to flow with it. And I think that was the most important part, and just being able to put my own twist on things and having an idea. I had like an idea of what I wanted it to be like when I came into it. I wanted every feature to be hit in all different ways and have multiple features coming from each one, and being able to take a feature large or small. So it's like fun for everyone. And so it was like a very inclusive park that could be fun for like the most beginner or the most advanced. It's kind of, you can take it how you want it, like create your own adventure with it and like have flow. So yeah, I mean, I think as an operator, if you're not listening to what the rider has to say and what your hand crew has to say, or what other operators have to say, then I think you're living in your own world, because like all of those people have a different view on it than you do, and you have to take all the feedback. I think I like beg for feedback always.
Mhm.
I like track people down. I'm like, how are things today? Like,
No way.
tell me what's going on. Like, tell me what's wrong. I want to know, like, I have to fix it. Yeah. I'm like, I'm very, very adamant about getting feedback. And when I don't get it, I just like seek it because I need to know how things are. And I need to ride my park every day. And I try to do that. I ride all the features that I build, and I ride all the parks that I groom, because like, how am I supposed to know how they ride if I don't ride them myself? And I accept the feedback from, of course, like my park crew is the most important, because they're out there all day and they see how people are interacting with the features in the park, and they ride it too. And I talk to people on the lifts, like, how are things going? Everyone has their own opinion, but I don't think any opinion is wrong necessarily. And I like to take all the opinions and try to learn from them, because I want to create the best product possible. And I'm only learning, and I'm trying to, better my skills, as well as create that safe, but also really fun and rideable product that can harness like creativity in riders, as well as like, being able to be safe for them.
Yeah, no, that's very well put. I do have a question from Garrett that I'm going to throw at you right now. Here we go.
Hey, Chloe. I know you're a very mechanically inclined person, both with snowcats and Toyota pickup trucks. And I was just wondering if you could fill us in on how many times you've pulled your transmission by yourself and how quickly you're able to now do it.
Oh my God. Yeah, I have pulled my transmission like probably 8 times, and I can do
8 times?
Yeah.
Damn.
I mean, I won't even go into how, like, just the amount of, I've had such a shit time with that thing, but it's many different components of my engine, my clutch system, and my engine, bearings, and my transmission and all of that. But in any case, I can pull a transmission in a little over an hour.
Wow. Sure. And that is that on, like, if you were to say somebody threw like a Chevrolet at you, could you do that in like 2 hours?
Oh yeah, I can pull any transmission. I worked at a scrapyard last year, and pulling engines and transmissions off of any car, or really any vehicle, and all different types of ways. And I feel pretty confident that I could do it on anything. The 2-wheel drives are much more simple than the 4-wheel drive, and my transmission actually is a 2-part with my transfer case, so it's extra heavy and long, and it's ridiculous, but I've devised many ways of doing it alone, so I don't need extra help, and I can get it down in under 2 hours.
Wow. Obviously isn't the right word, because I don't know your process, but to do it solo, are you using jack stands, floor jack?
Yeah.
Okay.
I use a ratchet strap, 2 ratchet straps, jack stand, and my body.
Right on.
Or not a jack stand, floor jack, and a jack stand for my engine. Yeah. And whatever tools I can, and a lot of whiskey, usually. Evan Williams is my whiskey of choice. Top shelf, bottom shelf.
Well, I have to ask too, just because I'm most curious, and you've definitely hinted at some aspects of it, but I'd really want to know where you think the future of the industry is headed. And I mean, you can take it so many different ways. You can go equipment, you can go, product offering, you can go where you think climate change may be headed. But wherever you want to take it, where do you think the future of the industry is headed?
I think that the future of the industry can be bright. I think that, like I spoke to before, in terms of like the park scene and things like that, I think that it's headed in a right direction, and it's headed towards something that kind of shies more away from the slope style builds and into a more creative type of experience for riders, like a more flowy designs and more options to be creative in terms of the kind of building that I think that it's headed towards, like at least in terms of what people are trying to see more of, and like having more operators coming up and having these ideas of what they would want to see that is a little bit further from the competitive aspect of things. It's hard though, because the future of the industry is also less sure. It's less. I'm. It's hard to say that there is much of a future in the industry because of the climate, and it's hard to say that. And I know that a lot of people push back on that, but it's really important to think of where the winter is going, and if we can see a future in this industry with how the climate is changing and how much less snow we're going to see and how much more reliant on snowmaking mountains are getting, and how at Mount Hood they've never had a snowmaking program, but they're establishing one now because of how little snow is staying on the glacier, like how we've seen Mount Shasta this year is the first year on modern record that it has totally melted out that glacier, or that snowfield. The Palmer Glacier not even being a glacier anymore, having it being dwindled down as a snowfield and progressively becoming less and less wide and having less and less time on snow. And that is like a really hard reality that we're facing right now. And it's important to take that into account in the industry and trying to find ways to mitigate that. And, you know, all we're doing all night, every night is burning diesel. And like, I love burning diesel as much as the next person. But in reality, like, we're just kind of dwindling our own chances of our jobs being still jobs in the future. And it's like, I think a lot of companies are moving in the right directions with electric vehicles, although that is a different type of evil that is much less apparent and more long term. But it's hard. It's hard to think of the future with how much I've been taught about science and the world and trends that are so new in this new era that we're living in, that is entirely formed by humans and our pollution. And that plays a really big part on the ski industry. And it plays a lot on my mind about the future of it.
Well, Chloe, we have been chatting for quite some time, and I've been grateful for your time and your contributions. I just want to say thanks. Thank you so much for joining me on the Blade Dive to talk about all things you, what you've been a part of, who you are as a person and as an operator, but just what your thoughts are on the industry as a whole, its future, and just some of the amazing contributions you've made along the way. So I can't thank you enough for being a part of this. It means the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Barker, for letting me speak my story or have a little say on it. It's been an honor. I want to thank everyone. Everyone at Sierra. I want to give a shout out to John and Paul and all the mechanics at Sierra and at Timberline that are just working tirelessly to fix all the shit we break. And my park staff at Sierra, I know that this is like a really hard time for us, seeing that the fires really affected Sierra and we're not sure about the future. And I just want to shout out to them and all their hard work that they do every season. And I really hope I can come back and work with them again. But I guess the future is unknown. So we're just going to have to think positively.
huge thank you to Chloe Butel for being this week's Blade Dive episode. We talked about a lot, but one of the things that really was humbling was to discuss just for a short period of time all the information that was coming into us about the fires that were crossing over and through Sierra Tahoe. They are still ongoing, approaching South Lake. People have evacuated, but I wanted to provide some information should you feel like supporting a fire fund. And the Caldor Fire Fund is something that you can donate to via the El Dorado Community Foundation. You can make a one-time donation or multiple donations that help the cause here. Stay safe out there. Check in on people if you've got friends and family in South Lake. You know the deal. Don't be a dick. Please fill your machine up with diesel at the end of your shift. And put out your fucking campfires, too.
Yeah, I mean, if it's going to happen anywhere in this country, it's going to be there. They are revolutionary with what they choose to put on as projects, and they're kind of in the forefront of like the park scene. And it's got like the little lines from the heater inside of the windshield. And especially as a manager or in that management role, like that is your job, to create that inclusivity and to create an environment that is healthy for everyone and also inclusive. I mean, the snow industry in the way that it is and all the costs taken under consideration, it is very privileged. It's a very privileged part of society.